Hi everyone, it's your favorite show, the Final Voice Show, and today we talk about New Africa and the new slave trade. It appears Africa is still in slave trade or in slavery. It appears Africa has not learned any lesson from her mistakes. We are still into slavery, if you should ask me, and we will tell you why Africa is still enslaved or in slavery. Final Voice is your show. Subscribe, like, and share this video. And we are about to hit on some specific aspects of Africa, this new Africa, and what Africa must do, or in which direction Africa must go. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching. I'll be right back. Well, welcome to the show. I am Charles.
And I'm Mitchell.
Yeah, so Mr. Mitchell, you're not new to my shows, and viewers would like to see you every day and every day. I don't know why my viewers would like to see you on my show. So it appears Africa hasn't learned any lessons from her mistakes. Mother Africa keeps crying every day.
Yeah.
But the same Mother Africa, I would say, is a gracious loser. Africa prefers being called a loser. That is how I see it. If not that, we should have moved from where we are to a different level where generations unborn will be happy. Not this current generation. The unborn generation will come to see a different Africa from what we've been told in books. But it appears nothing is changing. We are still at where we are. And what do you make of Africa? Anytime you hear about Africa and her relations with the Western world, with America, with China, with the big guys, so I'll put it.
Thank you, Charles. It's a pleasure again to be on your show. It's always a pleasure to talk about things that concern us as students, things that concern us as people back from Africa. So your talk actually reminds me of one history lesson that I had some time ago, where we learned about the Bourbon monarchy in France. And the Bourbon monarchy in France, the statement was they learned nothing and forgot nothing.
Africa has learned nothing and forgot nothing.
Yeah, so like no input actually.
Nothing new.
Nothing new.
Same old Africa.
Yes. So when we talk about Africa, the creation of Africa into the states that we know was actually done in Berlin.
Yeah, they just sat down, put some map on a desk in Berlin, and they said, I like here. Belgium said, I like Congo. The French said, I love Ivory Coast, give me all the Francophone countries here. And the British said, oh wow, I like Ghana, I like Nigeria, I like Kenya, I like Uganda.
Yeah, and so no African representation was at this forum.
You mean there was no black man when they were sharing Africa?
No. At least would have said, but okay, fine, you like your cocoa and chocolate, fine, it's okay, but don't use this as the boundary, because this chiefdom stretches up to here, something like that. But that was not there. So if we take that and we fast track it a little bit to the situation that we have today, you would find again that we still are at the receiving end. That in all the forums that are actually done, we come in as third parties to these events. And our participation there is mostly, in many cases, it's actually reactionary. Like we wait for what they've said, then we accept, okay, we are going to do that. But we don't come in a proactive manner, that we actually have something that we are presenting on the table that we are going in this direction. So mostly we are recipients.
Africa is never proactive. Excuse me. Africa is never proactive. We are only at the recipient end.
Yes. So in my view, that's how I see it.
So what do you make of this sponsored infrastructure in Africa? Many of the ports, many of the parliaments in Africa, many infrastructure in Africa now are being sponsored. But the people that we said they took us as slaves. So what is new? You said the person enslaved you. 50 years fast forward, or 60 years or 80 years forward. The same person is building parliaments for you. The same person is building ports for you. What do you make of this development?
There's in our languages there are so many so many idioms that have to do with the gifts. And I remember the one even in English we say don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Yeah. So we have like you mentioned, it's not quite clear. We have traditional beer in my country which is not clear.
The chubuku?
Chubuku, yeah, chubuku. And then there is clear beer. So in this case, things are not really, in my view, transparent to really know what's really going on. It reminds me of the Trojan horse that was donated, at one point, and it actually had some enemies within this horse, and it caused problems in the city. So I kind of think along those lines, like some of the gifts are not really, transparent or maybe the best solutions, because sometimes they actually cause then later some other problems. And then it's not in my view that we cannot afford these things. For instance, you mentioned the headquarters for the African Union was actually built, as we know, by the Chinese.
Yeah. The headquarters in Ethiopia,
yes.
Addis Ababa.
Yes.
That edifice that they go there and sit or plan or do whatever was built by the Chinese. The new parliament in Zimbabwe is being built by the Chinese. Go to the ports in some of these countries in Africa. So we are not against infrastructure, but we are asking for transparency. What is making these donors come in? What will make the German government give you some 200 million euros for infrastructure? What will make the Chinese government come into your country today and say, hey, I'm building a parliament for you? Why our leaders go to Europe or to China for conferences, we don't know. That somebody elsewhere in China or in Europe can invite all African presidents or head of states for a meeting. For what?
Yeah.
For trade purposes or what? And you and I know that, it's long overdue. It's not always about trade. It's that kind of partnership. It's that kind of supremacy being twisted in a different style and being given back to you. This time I'm not coming with the gun. This time I'm not coming with the gunpowder anymore. But this time, hey, come to France. I am Macron. Come to France and let's have a tea. Let's sit around the desk and let's talk. And these leaders go to France or Germany or any of these countries in the world, Canada, Australia, you name it, and they are being offered nice hotels. You could see the goodies. And what are they there for? To talk about Africa or to talk about that country? Why would France spend money so much to invite all heads of states in Africa? Why would France spend, let's say, China, spend so much money to invite over 50 heads of state in Africa for a meeting? What kind of meeting? For trade partnerships or what? I think there is more that we need to know, and like you said, Africa needs to be proactive and not be at the receiving end. Don't be a recipient, but be proactive. So this is your favorite show. I'm going for a break. When I come back, Mr. Mitchell and myself tell you more about Africa and the way forward. We're talking about new Africa and the new slave trade. Keep watching. Yeah, so it's your favorite show. It's your favorite show. It's your favorite show. The new Africa and the new slave trade. Africa is still enslaved. We are still in slavery, but we've turned deaf ears and blind eyes to what is happening. What do you make of population of Africa and food production? Because we can't live with hunger. Hunger should be a thing of the past. Has Africa prepared to do away with hunger on that continent? are we prepared to do away with poverty on that continent? Let's tackle food production and population.
Okay, thank you, Charles, that we can talk about food and the population nexus. Okay, starting off with the population, I would say the population, the demographic structure of Africa is in such a way that I was just talking to a colleague from Nigeria who informed me that very soon Nigeria will be like the third most populous country in the world.
Yeah, I think from China, India, maybe from America and them.
Then they look forward to overtaking America in the coming decade. Yeah. So, and then the other interesting aspect of the population structure is that we actually have around 40% of people under the age of 15 actually being in Africa, right? So 40%, just Africa, below the age of 15. So we now look at this aspect of food production that you also mentioned. So it appears then that there is a mismatch. We might look at, for instance, the staple foods in some countries is maize, and the production of maize per hectare is way lower than the international average. So you'll find that in many countries it is actually below 1 ton per hectare, yet others go as much as 6 tons per hectare. And this event that happened in Ukraine has actually exposed, our capacity in terms of dealing with the food crisis, and until everyone is talking about wheat shortages and talking about Ukraine. It might be in South Africa.
Common oil, we say Ukraine.
You say Ukraine, yeah. So it actually shows that we actually have a very big problem, because if the bulk of our population is able-bodied, that is it actually is an advantage. We also have huge tracts of land, which is also another huge advantage. But the nexus between the population and the food production really is not.
There is a mismatch.
Yes. So when we remember what the geographer Malthus said at one point, where he talked about that there is a possibility of food shortage because the population has actually grown up.
That is a Malthus ghost effect.
Yes, so that ghost of Malthus seems to have come back to haunt us now, because the population is really exploding. Yeah. And at the same time, our food production seems to be actually going down. Yeah. So in that sense, then if you look at also the imports or food imports that we make for rice, for wheat, for whatever, it actually shows that we have a huge problem. And this is actually being worsened, Charles, by the climate change. Because we realize that even the projections are that the rainfall system will be erratic, and that poses also a threat to our farmers who actually rely on rain-fed agriculture.
So our farmers rely on rain?
Yes.
When it comes to agriculture, and as at now, we have not been able to even improve upon our irrigation systems.
Yes. So if you put this whole picture together, you find that the food situation really is not good. You talk about I think the census that are being done in various countries, and we have this problem of stunted growth in children. And this stunted growth in children also has a bearing on the future population, because if our children are stunted now, and they are actually going into adulthood as in that manner. So it actually means that we also have a problem in the future. And this is the kind of thing that we want to avoid.
So when you talk about the Malthus ghost effect, it's like when food production is increasing at the rate of 1, let's say from 1 you go to 2.
Yes.
From 2 to 3.
To 3, yes.
3 to 4. That is for the case of food production. But when it comes to the population side, it's almost increasing at a very fast pace or rate.
Yes.
So let's say from 1 you go to 5.
Yes.
From 5 you go to 10.
Exactly.
From 10 you go to 15.
Or even 20.
So every 10 years you just pick the population of Africa, and you can't just imagine what is happening in that continent, and you don't know what we are producing to feed the population.
Yeah.
The technique to even produce more food is not there. And we keep, we sit unconcerned.
Yeah, actually.
If you talk about Maslow's theory of needs, the very fundamental food, shelter, and clothing is still a problem in Africa, and we still don't check our population. So there is always a mismatch between population and shelter, population and food, population and clothing.
Yes.
Yeah. So what about African unity? You think African unity is long overdue? It's about time. We have to call for unity and nothing else. Or it is just impossible, no matter what we do, because of how God created us, because of how nature wants us, we can't unite.
I don't believe like that, Charles. I think that I don't believe in impossibilities. I always like to think that there is always an opportunity if people really give themselves to it. So when you talk about African unity, there are a number of things that actually bring unity to people. We have issues to do with language, for instance, and it's a pity, for instance, that it's only just recently that Swahili was also recognized as an official language at the African unity, but it's also a good thing. But I was worried at the
good old Swahili language.
Yeah, at the pace that it took for it to be recognized in that way, because it was like the whole of Central Africa and Eastern Africa actually speaks this language. So in terms of language, because language helps us to have that unity, and I think that there should be this focus such that it should be in a way that we have this integration in terms of the language as one.
Yeah, for language, I do agree with you. I also believe that to unite Africa, we need a system and not so much of language. What if we have a common passport?
Okay.
What if we have a common market? What if we have a common currency? These three, common market, common currency, and common passport is the way to go. Let's check Europe. People of Romania have not stopped speaking their language. The Germans have not stopped speaking Deutsch. The French, France, they've not stopped speaking French. They've maintained their various languages. What they did is to call for a common market, call for Schengen or common passport, so that you can enter countries within the Schengen zone. What they did again was to call for common currency, the euro. So when I go to France or Holland or Italy or Spain, one currency is still accepted, which is the euro. So as we focus on language, we should also focus on getting the common currency, the common market, the common passport. These three are very essential. Then we can also talk about when it comes to poverty. There are several measures being done in several countries. I wouldn't deny that. But how effective they are is the question. The poverty eradication programs, they seem not to work. It's been politicized. Every party comes to power with its poverty eradication program. When that party leaves office, that program is also gone. Don't you think that is a problem? I want us to look at that, and also these courses being run in the various universities in Europe. The courses that we came to do, can't we run similar in Africa? Because check the number of African students that travel from Africa to Europe for their bachelor's or master's and pay huge sums of money.
Actually, maybe I wanted to take you a little bit back to this aspect of African unity. And you mentioned this aspect of a common market, of which there's been progress made in that regard with the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. So, but like you mentioned, this aspect then of the monetary system, of how then to integrate the monetary system into this framework of the AFC's agreement. So this also represents another challenge where we still have this fractured monetary system, which actually makes it difficult for trade. But we also see the ECOWAS region also had their own probably framework that they use. We also have the Eastern African region also have their own framework. But it would help really if it could actually come to a common.
I mean, these blocks, this East African bloc, this ECOWAS, that is the West African bloc. Then what does it take to have a common passport? What would that change?
Yeah.
I'm not saying come and speak my language. I'm not saying change the food you eat. I'm not saying change your culture. I'm not saying you should take off some chiefs or take off the title of some chiefs in your region.
It's just a passport.
Let's have a common passport so that when I'm traveling to Zimbabwe, I don't need so much restrictions. I don't need to answer so much questions. Let's have a common market. I'm not saying
I think
come and keep your money in my country.
I think the point that you make, Charles, is very important. We spoke a little bit about Berlin, the Berlin conference, where the countries were
demarcation of Africa was done in Berlin.
Exactly.
Yes, on a silver platter.
So it's actually a very belated talk that we can actually be talking about having a free common passport in Africa. In that sense, because that should actually have been the discussion from the word go, that we remove all these unnecessary hindrances to African, even just the domestic trade, tourism. Within, like, let's say I want to visit Ghana also, then I have to have another visa, and all these kind of limitations are not really necessary. So that is on one level. And then you spoke about the universities running similar programs to what we actually have here. I think that is also something that is very necessary. When we look at the broad spectrum that we have been talking about in being enslaved again, sometimes what we actually learn when we are here might be very applicable to the situation here in Europe, right? But maybe not exactly applicable back home. So it would actually help then if we had these programs back home, which are well suited for our local situation. Because then sometimes we are going to be disjointed. We bring the ideas that we see here and we try to make them work there when they can't work. You know how Africa is in various aspects of it. Yeah,
because to enslave someone also comes along with indoctrination. What I see now is like we are being embedded with some stuff that they think we should learn, not what we think we should learn. So many African students in Europe, they are in America, Australia, Canada, picking stuffs. They are learning stuffs that may not be so relevant for Africa.
But we are also paying money at the same time. If it's
relevant for Africa, one day your slave master will still have total control over you because you came to learn what I wanted you to learn.
It's a double-edged sword, Charles. You know, learning internationally like we have done is, well, on one end we have this that you mentioned, that we also have that threat, but at the same time there are also some advantages of learning internationally. We also have the networks that like we can also even interact the way we are doing. Probably if we were back home we might not have this same interaction. So these are some of the advantages that it has then. But when we talk about the resources that we actually use up as students, we know we know that there are scholarships that also have assisted, but there is quite a huge number of people who are actually using their own resources to really come here as well and study. So if these resources could also be used back home, that would also help the situation.
Yeah, because the people of Cuba train doctors.
Yes.
The doctors of Cuba are not trained in America or Australia or Germany. The doctors are trained in Cuba and they export them for money.
Exactly, yes.
So Africa can do something. It's not a matter of we traveling abroad to seek for higher education. with the right resources, with the funds, if you don't misuse the funds, if you don't misuse the resources in Africa,
and also
we can train our own people to have the expertise in certain fields.
Exactly. And now that you mention it, Charles, I think something that is also of great importance. When we look at the various countries that we have, we have 54 countries in Africa, and I'm sure we could actually specialize, in different areas. Like you mentioned, Cuba actually is specialized with medicine, with their doctors. And we have places like India have actually specialized in IT. So I'm sure in Africa, if we were to go by the same thing.
The Ricardian model in economics, like have this expertise, try to specialize in this side, let's say in the making of cars, like in the case of Germany, when it comes to cars, the automobile industry, they've tried to grow it, and they export cars to other countries. So Zimbabwe can specialize in what they do best, and Ghana can do same. Then we can
always cross-pollinate ideas, and it's really helpful in that sense, because if we approach it from that angle, that, for example, now what is happening in Rwanda, for instance, that Rwanda is actually the first country to be using these drones for delivery of medicine, for instance. So it's actually...
And Ghana also bought some drones for this health sector.
You see. So I think if we take that kind of approach, definitely this unity that we are speaking of can actually be achieved.
All right. Yes. I'm going for a break. When I come back, we discuss the last aspect of New Africa and the new slave trade. So we are still here talking about New Africa and the new slave trade. Is Africa still enslaved? Are we masters of our own? Or we still receive some instructions from elsewhere? What about the sponsored infrastructure? Some countries are building parliament, ports, schools, roads for Africa. What is the reason behind this? Can that be transparent? Can they justify? Can they tell us what they are doing and why? The person you called your slave master, the person who came to point guns at you, says he's building parliament for you today, that he's building ports for you today. We are not against infrastructure, but Africa needs to watch out. We also talk about the Maltese effect, the Maltese ghost effect. The population of Africa is growing, it's fast growing, but we can't produce more to feed our own population. Let's produce more and feed our population. At least let's focus on the very, this basic aspect of life, as Maslow puts it, the shelter aspect, the clothing aspect, and the food aspect. Our leaders in Africa can do this. Do not let people die of hunger. Let's clothe our people. Let's provide shelter for our people in Africa. We talk about African unity. Can we unite as people of one continent? Or it is just impossible because of how God made us, that people believe that nature has made it in such a way that we can't unite. Is that true? We talk about some courses being run in Europe, and these courses make these countries earn some income. Direct investment, because when students travel from South America, when students travel from Africa, or when students travel from America or Australia to Germany, they come with some resources, and they spend these resources in the German economy. When students travel from South America or Africa to Belgium or Holland, they spend their penny in that economy. One way or the other, you are helping the economy to grow. Can Africans also have similar programs so that we cut off that huge investment or that money that we have to put in training our own Africans abroad? Can we do something new in Africa to attract people from the Western world to Africa. We've mentioned so many things in our discussion, but we are about to end the show with one aspect of new Africa and the new slave trade. Mr. Mitchell, can we make good use of our population and resources? If you look at Africa today, living in Europe and viewing Africa, what do you think can be done with regard to the population and the resources that we have?
Right, that's a very important question, Charles. When we look at the population that we have, you have actually rightfully mentioned that we actually have a huge, because a huge population entails a huge market at the end. It also entails labor in the same token. And then looking at what we have, this is where we should actually look at it in a strategic way. We have the raw materials that are required for almost any industry that you might talk about.
But we export these raw materials without value.
Exactly.
And take penny.
Yes. So you might talk about even renewable energy. We have plenty of sun that we could actually have solar energy.
Yeah.
And if we go by this, that for example, we are now getting into the electric energy, electric vehicles. This requires lithium. We have plenty of it in Africa. So the requirement now is that we should actually be geared towards beneficiation of these raw materials, not exportation in the raw format. Because as we have observed, we have oil in various countries here in Africa, but all these countries do not produce their own diesel, petrol, etc. They sometimes have to be exported, and then we have to import the diesel, the petrol from other
Africa
countries.
Have the resources. We tap into our own resources, but we have to export them.
And then import
so that
them
these Westerners add value to our raw materials. Then we import them back into our
more
countries
expensive this time
at a very expensive rate and sell to the consumer.
Exactly.
I mean, how do you survive on this?
Yeah, so it's not a sustainable format, because if you take the number of years that we have actually had, say, petroleum in Nigeria, by now we should actually have our own refinery. And we should actually be talking about exporting just as much as the OPEC countries have done. That in a very short time, they put their heads together, Saudi Arabia and these other oil-producing countries. And in a short time, they actually produce their own energy in that sense. So this is actually where we should also be going as Africa. It's not
talking about Nigeria, it's a sad one that country produces so much fuel and gas. I mean, they are part of OPEC. I mean, the pioneers
of OPEC.
And you go to Nigeria and still experience blackout or lights out.
You see, so
you have the gas, you have the fuel, whether diesel or petrol. I mean, why should people be put through that?
Yes. So these are
is it somebody's business to import generators and plants into the country, and therefore you don't focus on fixing the problem for Nigerians? Come to think of it, the same Nigeria and their population. Don't you think they can make good use of their population, like the case of China? China realized that they have the population. They can train people to have some expertise or get some knowledge in certain fields or certain parts of the economy. So when it came to health, they trained people. Engineering, they trained people. You mentioned it. Now, China is making good use of its population. China has created a whole market for itself. People from Africa, America, and what have you have to go to China to buy. And they themselves, as Chinese, buy their own products. And that is making China what we see, or the China that we know today. A very large market, large labor force, higher productivity. So what do you expect in the end? Development.
Yes.
Can't we do same in Africa? Can't Nigeria, the populous country in Africa, use their population or take advantage of their population to have a strong or a large market, a large labor force?
Right, that's a very important question again, Charles. I think what actually needs to be done, because the population itself, even if it's huge, but if people do not have income, it's just numbers. So what needs to be done is to transform the, especially rural life, so that at least people in the rural areas can actually afford to spend at least minimum $4 a day. Because at least when someone can spend this much, this is how the economy starts to move. But as we are currently, we are saying that most people are actually below $1 a day. And some actually even go for free. They wake up, they go and take water.
The purchasing power of the ordinary Ghanaian or Zimbabwean or Nigerian is very low.
Yeah, because you talk
people
about...
live by less than $1 a day. People live by less than $1 a day in Africa.
Yes, because if you compare, like I was looking at the GDP per capita in Germany is around 44,000 per year, and you look at Zimbabwe is actually around 1,000. So you look at this disparity; it's a huge disparity. That we are talking about someone here in Germany spending at least 40,000 a year, and one in Zimbabwe spending only 1,000 a year. You see, this is a huge difference. So what we now looking at is, so this especially rural life should actually be advanced to come at least to a middle income sort of category. And then this is actually what they did in China, that they moved this rural populace from this like we would say poverty, and then they put them in a way that then they can at least spend this money. And when people can spend money, this is now, so if you make something, you are sure that it can be bought. You make your phones, whatever you make, and then there is a population that can buy this. So as it currently stands, even the newspaper industry itself cannot survive in our countries. Because why? The whole rural populace cannot buy a newspaper, you see. So it's just limited to the urban areas. So this is what needs to be changed. And if the rural populace can actually come into the mainstream economy, then now we are talking. We're talking about usage of this.
So we should target our people and make them become, let's say they become income. They should earn income. Exactly. They should be sufficient within their own means.
Within their own.
Then, like I said earlier, some turn the population into a large labor force and have a market for yourself as a continent.
So like the first turning point would be food. We were talking about that.
The food population. So it's about hunger.
Yes.
Let's deal with hunger. How do you deal with hunger? Produce more food.
Yeah. So this rural population that we are talking about should be at the center of food production, because actually in Africa that's where the majority of people stay. So if the majority of people cannot make their own food and we have to import for this same number of people, then we are not really going to be taking our countries forward.
Yeah, and Amartya Sen is a development economist, and he claims that there could be food, but when people can't afford, then it's another problem.
Exactly.
So whilst we're thinking about increasing food production, we should also think about income.
Yep.
How will people get that food? How can they afford that food that we want to produce to eradicate hunger or deal with hunger? Let's provide shelter and at least provide clothing for our own people. Our own people, they're not strangers. Do not mismanage the resources. Let's deal with corruption as Africans, and let's help each other as people of one continent. This is where we draw curtains on today's show. Thank you for coming on to the show, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
We would like to see you every day, anytime on this show, to share your experience with us, your knowledge with my viewers and myself. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.